On June 25, 2025, Kenya's streets erupted in chaos as protests swept the nation, a stark commemoration of last year's deadly anti-finance bill demonstrations. At the center of this storm, former Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i breaks his silence with a powerful message of grief, urgency, and a call for change. In a video seen by Maisha TV, Matiang'i condemns the loss of young lives and demands national dialogue, public accountability, and urgent reforms to address the deep-rooted frustrations fueling the unrest.
I have been observing what has been going on in the country since morning. Like many of us who are interested in what's happening in the country. And quite frankly, it's very painful and very unfortunate to see what is going on in the country, because I don't think there's someone around who thinks we should be living like this every day. We needed an open public inquiry on some of these things and on all things that are being raised, whether it's about unaccounted for deaths and so on. We need an open public inquiry on these matters so that issues can be resolved and can be addressed effectively and conclusively. We cannot go on like this, because the question you ask yourself every day is, how many more lives are we going to lose before we start listening and reasoning with each other? And what else needs to happen before we get to a point where we forget about whether it's politics or whatever the issues are and focus really on the questions that we are being asked at this particular time?
While the protests have not continued, their impact reverberates across the country. Matiangi spent that Wednesday glued to live coverage of the demonstrations, describing the scenes as, quote, very sad and disheartening. The protests, led largely by Kenyans' youth, turned tragic, with human rights monitors reporting several deaths and hundreds injured.
So my view is, I've observed this for the bit that I could, and listened very carefully, tried to spend most of the time, glued to screens, to YouTube, looking at what was going on. I mean, I've literally spent my day on this particular, and it's because the Gen Z said it's going to be their day. They don't need politicians on the streets and so on. So we have been glued, observing what was happening today. You can hardly do anything. There's nothing you can do when the country is in a situation where it is. We are all on tenterhooks. We don't know what is going to happen, and the level of destruction and violence we have seen across the country. Honestly, what is it going to take for us to listen, for our leaders to get to a point where they say, let us listen and reason with each other?
Matiangi's voice carries raw emotion as he speaks. He said, and I quote, "It is painful and heartening to see parents bury their children. Many of the young people we are losing are simply asking questions that are not just logical, but real and necessary."
Why must it be that when people ask questions, they are met with either a different attitude, or they are met with violence and so on and so forth? Yet they are basically asking questions, and they're not saying things that are alien to us. They're saying that things that we know and we ought to relate to in an effective manner.
These questions stem from a generation under 35, Kenya's majority demographic, demanding jobs, inclusion, better education, and relief from economic hardship. Matiangi stresses that these issues are not new. We know them. We live with them. He says, pointing to the government failure to address these grievances as a key driver of the unrest. The country is on tenterhooks, he warns. The level of violence and destructions we've seen is unbearable, and we can't pretend there are no issues. This is not about politics. It's about real frustration that must be addressed.
And our young people getting out, expressing themselves, and the level of violence that we have seen, the level of destruction in the country is unbearable. And we cannot pretend that there are no issues. And this has nothing to do with politics. Whatever side of the political divide you belong to, these issues need to be addressed. I keep asking this question: how many lives are we going to lose before we start listening and reasoning with each other? Because what is being asked here really is attention, and then to ensure that we work in an inclusive manner to address the challenges that we face. And we cannot pretend that the challenges don't exist, and then we live as if those who are raising questions, or those who are on the streets, like our young active Kenyans, are just doing it for any other reasons except trying to address the real issues that they deal with on a day-to-day basis. So for me and many of us, really, it's a very, very sad day and very painful. If we were a little more open and more focused in addressing some of these issues, we should not have gotten here this year.
His criticism of the government is unflinching. Matiangi condemns the state's use of force and its unwillingness to listen. How many lives must be lost before we listen and reason with each other? He asks. His words a direct challenge to the leadership. He calls for an open public inquiry into the protesters' grievances, highlighting unfulfilled promises from last year's demonstrations. He said, and I quote, "When this happened last year, there were no commitments that were never honored," urging leaders to stop pointing fingers and focus on solutions.
When this happened last year, there are promises that were made that were never fulfilled. Personally, I've been thinking, actually, and maybe I'll speak about this some more when I get out and start having conversations with people. We needed an open public inquiry on some of these things and on all things that are being raised.
Matiang'i also takes aim at the rhetoric of current leaders, calling their language, quote, "shocking and divisive." We need warriors of progress, not warriors who carry pangas and wrongers. He says, visibly emotional. The world needs leaders who build nation, not divide them. He emphasizes the need for unity across generations and political lines to restore stability, warning that ignoring the youth risks long-term instability.
And yet, you see, if this is not conclusively and properly addressed, this round is not going to come to an end. We are going to continue dealing with each other in this kind of manner, all the time. I believe that there must come a time in the life of a country when nothing matters but the country. Nothing matters but the stability of the country. Nothing matters but the stability and the satisfaction of the people of that particular country.
These are not problems beyond our reach. He insists these are things we can fix. The protest, though confined to a single day, exposed deep wounds in Kenya's social and economic fabric.
Kijana aliyepigwa risasi wa kwanza akauliwa jijini kwa Rex Masai, na ni kijana ndugu yetu kutoka hapa Machakos. Na leo tuliandikia polisi, tukatangaza kwa mitandao, tukatangazia serikali ya William Ruto kana kwamba leo tuko na maandamano ya makumbusho. It's no longer the time we were told that youths are there to be seen but not to be heard. Now we are on the table. If we are not on the table, let us be the table. Na hiyo meza kama wata tualika tutaiangusha, tutaiskuma ianguka, we'll turn the table. Yes. So the police, the government must listen to us. From today henceforth, anything that is being done in this nation, the youth must be consulted, the youth must be included. Tuachane na porojo ya kusema sisi ni viongozi wa kesho. Kesho yetu ni leo.
Matiangi's call for dialogue comes at a critical moment as the nation grapples with the aftermath of violence and the government's heavy-handed response. He urges both leaders and citizens to come together to address the economic and social pain that continues to drive unrest.
And for Kenya, for us now, that is the time. Let's for once focus on the issues that these young Kenyans are raising. I mean, approximately, when you look at the statistics, probably about 7 out of 10 Kenyans you talk to are between the age 0 and 35. Now, the 3 out of 7 who are 35 and above, we cannot fail to listen to the bulk of our population and focus on the welfare and the interests of the bulk of our population. And the questions they're asking are not about things that are alien, they're about things that are with us.
Let us not lose hope, he says. It is for this reason that we must find solutions. These challenges are real, but they are not insurmountable. As Kenya reflects on the events of June 25, 2025, Matiangi's words serve as a sobering reminder of the work ahead. The protest may have ended, but the demands of the youth for jobs, inclusion and accountability remain unresolved. Will the nation's leaders rise to challenge, or will these grievances simmer until the next breaking point? Only time will tell. For Maisha TV, I'm William Juma.